I was not an Alex Jones fan for a very long time. I made it known. I had criticized him here on this show, and I still have criticisms of him. But we're at a point right now, and we'll be talking about this today. We'll be showing you a montage of the end zone dance from not only the elites in Hollywood, not only the elites in media, but the elites in government. Government officials actually championing this silencing of speech. And that is absolutely what it is. Regardless of where you line up, there's an inflection point right now in this country. And the reason that we're having Alex Jones on, and we've had him on, is because I hate seeing people being bullied. I hate seeing a pile-on. Even if you think he's said some things that are reprehensible, and we'll get into the things that he said that he regrets and he's apologized for ad nauseum, I just can't believe that we have people in this country, let alone people who are comedians or people who are supposed to be servants of ours, champion the silencing of someone speaking. And there's a very strong message that is being sent right now, and that's why this episode is largely going to focus on this. It's going to be what they call a deep dive, the kids, on the systematic, I guess you would say, expulsion of people for wrongthink and how deep it runs. And the idea that you can just go and start your own business. And most important is, when you have someone like Alex Jones, who, if you've watched his career, and I do consider him a friend now, I will say this on a personal level. He's been around, from what I know of him, he's a good man, a flawed man. He's talked about it here on air. To me, it's refreshing when he's on air. He was on air on Ash Wednesday and said, maybe I drink a little too much and, I have it. He'll tell you about his flaws. But for a man who speaks publicly for hours on end, and then misspeaks or gets something wrong, and then apologizes, and then is punished anyway, and then the government jumps in. People, well, I guess former press secretary, but current members of the government and entities who are backed by the government, be it banks, be it big tech organizations, deciding to put you in stocks in the town square. The message is really loud. And I hope that you're hearing it. If you make a mistake, not only is there a double standard, which we'll talk about, if you have a belief that other people find to be offensive, and of course that's a sliding scale. We know that we've gone further and further down the trail here. Look behind you, there's a slippery slope. And you apologize anyway. They only get worse. What do I mean they? The left. I mean the left. Why is it left or right? They've made it left or right. There is no one on the right, and no one here in this studio who would end zone dance because of a worthy adversary being silenced, and certainly not if they apologized and said that they were wrong. We've hosted those people on this show. People like Naomi Wolf, people like Alex Jones, actually. If you say something that they in power deem to be unacceptable and apologize dozens of times and correct the record, you can still have your life ruined anyway. People fought for their lives for a very long time, but you know what that really means? Your livelihood. Make no mistake, when government-backed entities can take away your livelihood, should it be that you decide to purchase ammo off of PayPal, or decide to, as a doctor, question the efficacy of a vaccine, or even just run a clip from a Pfizer executive herself and you get removed, or you're a host on air, and you speak your opinion, wrong as it may be, and then apologize, and you can be punished, removed, and your livelihood eviscerated. Wars were fought for less than that. And I'm not, of course, really clearly not advocating war just before the CNN folks want to run a highlight reel. I am giving you, hopefully, the scope, the depth of the problem that we're dealing with here. Your livelihood is something. You shouldn't feel guilty when it's at risk. And it's at risk for a lot of people. It's something certainly worth fighting for. And it's something that people have fought for. Look at any huge, great, and I say great, I mean the Great War. The Great War, right, is what they called it before they had World War I and II. Then they said, well, I guess we have to separate it. We can't really call it the Great War. We'll call it World War I and II. I'm not saying wars are great. I'm using the term here. Look at any epic war, battle. They were fought over what? No, not just religion. Land, resources, access to water. Why? To preserve your livelihood. And we now try and separate that and say, hey, well, businesses can do whatever they want. Well, they're not businesses if they're an arm of the government. And you know what? Removing your livelihood is tantamount to trying to end your life. Let's be clear about that. Okay, well, you know what? I guess I'll go start my own. I guess I'll go start my own media company. Well, no, can't do that. We're going to find that out of business. I guess I'll. I guess I'll have to take donations. Can't do that. We're going to remove your ability to take donations. I guess then it's just back to standard banking and wire. You can't do that. You're removed from a bank. I don't care if you agree with Alex Jones or not. Doesn't matter. And by the way, this is so clear. It's so obvious that that's a big reason that the court said you cannot argue that this is political persecution. Do you understand that was this trial was predicated on that? He wasn't even allowed to argue that because he didn't provide additional finances. I'm not saying mistakes weren't made across the board, but I hope that all of you understand the gravity of this situation. There are some silver linings here right now in this country, and we try to come to you as happy warriors. But make no mistake, today is a day where we need all of you to be warriors, because if they can remove the livelihood of not only Alex Jones, but they can remove the bank account of Kanye West, several other people, by the way, also on PayPal, and these are organizations that are backed with federal guarantees and a never-ending supply of your tax dollars. You are at a point in this country where you are paying taxes to fund the theft of food from the mouths of your kids, all under the guise of, First Amendment only protects the government stopping you from saying something. That's all it does. It prevents the government from stopping you. Okay. By that same token, shouldn't JP Morgan, shouldn't JP Chase, whatever their abbreviation is, these things are all these giant conglomerates, if they're backed by our tax dollars, if they're guaranteed, if they've received hundreds of billions of dollars, and if you adjust for inflation in the last few months, hundreds of trillion dollars in taxpayer dollars, are they allowed to deny you your fundamental constitutional rights? What point do we separate private business from government? And I say this as someone who doesn't trust big government. But one of the roles of government, the only legitimate role of government, I would argue the only legitimate role that falls under the purview of our government, is to protect the citizens from external threats. That means wars. That means from tyrants abroad, and internal threats. And how do we determine an internal threat? Well, the good news is we have a handbook. It's the Constitution. And that's not hyperbole. That's not just rhetoric. It is meant to be our way of life. And people are wiping their asses with it. So I don't care. I want you to try and separate your opinions from the man today. I want you to try and separate your opinions from maybe the views that have been expressed, and understand that this is something that is permeating right now. This is a very pernicious, it's like the never-ending story, the nothing. It will destroy everything it touches, and you have got to put aside. This is the thing that the left does so well. I'm sorry I'm going long in this cold open. Go with me here. Hit the like button if you can. Share this show, comment, because you know YouTube's going to make sure that you cannot find this anywhere. Go and search Steven Crowder, Alex Jones, Ash Wednesday. At least up until a couple days ago, the video that we did with him wouldn't have popped up. Maybe they've changed it now that some eyeballs are on it. This is, it's more important than just taxes. And it's one of the few legitimate roles of government. And we do need right now government to actually start doing their job, their only job. Again, that falls under their purview, and protecting you, the citizens, from external threats, but more importantly, having representatives, having people who protect you from them. And you know what was supposed to be a safeguard against that? This is what's so brilliant about the Constitution. You know what's supposed to be a safeguard against that? If the government should become corrupt? Well, there's also supposed to be freedom of the press. Why? So that they can call the government to the mat. They can hold them accountable. Think that's what's happening now? Think that's what's happening now? When they've rescheduled their programming to give you another January 6th hearing, last time they canceled it, by the way, you can go and watch our stream on that, 3.5 hours, the ins and outs. So we have your right to speak freely. Well, that's gone. Then we have the freedom of the press. They're not interested in that. It comes down to you. Comes down to what you can do, your voice, and who you elect and who you hold accountable. This is the issue. This is the same issue that, by the way, determines whether you can bank, determines whether you can choose to hire who you want to hire, that determines which institutions in which you can take part, and determines, by the way, where you can speak, determines if you're allowed to keep your kids. If you choose to not put them on puberty blockers, you remove the ability for you to speak. And it starts with someone else who you go, well, that's not me. That's far more offensive. That's way beyond the pale. That may be. But Alex Jones is not the only one. They want to make an example of him because they want. Do you feel that? Does everyone feel that? Everyone feel that tension? Everyone feel that fear? That's not something that we felt here in this country. I get it. Barack Obama, horrible president. Liar, makes up words, we beat up. Hilarious because he's such a bullshit artist. But the tension of, oh man, I might lose my bank account. I might be fined $2,500 if I purchase ammo legally on PayPal. That tension right now, people are going, what can we say, what can we not say, or lose our livelihood? That's a first. That's a first. And that can't stand. And that's why we're doing the show we are today. Let's go.